Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. I think everything's working good today. I don't know. I mean, you tell me, send me a comment. I'd appreciate it. If you can hear me, it says we're live. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I'm running a command center here just out of view of, of the camera that you can't see it. So everything says I'm here. I don't know if you're here or not yet. So send me a good morning if you don't mind. I'd love it. We're we're going through boundaries with sour people, and the that's a pretty difficult thing because what I talked about yesterday was first we have to identify who is sour in our life, and now you can call it negative or whatever, but I don't mean toxic. Toxic is a different thing in my view. I'm anyway, and then I did have a few messages yesterday, and thanks. I mean, I can't say it enough. Thanks for the messages. If you think about it, I say hammer the like button. Really appreciate that. Share this with a friend as well. Is just super helpful. But at any rate, toxic and sour is different. Toxic, and I'll probably, based off of some of the messages that I got, I'll probably talk about that and kind of my viewpoint of it and some of the things that I've had to deal with over the years being involved in speaking, and you just have to deal with some things that are perhaps not toxic to their normal circle, but toxic to what I'm doing in things. and it's toxic to my mission statement or however you want to say it, my mission vision or whatever that I established way back, just a short time after my daughter died. So, hey, thanks. Good morning. All's great. Appreciate you. And so anyway, toxic and sour is different, and toxic is a lot deeper and a lot harsher, and it's a lot more intentional from people to be toxic than to be sour. A lot of times I think that sour or negative, you could probably call it in general, is something that people don't even realize is happening. And toxic to me is an intent to tear you down, to subvert what you're doing or whatever else. But anyway, we talked about first identify who's sour in your life. Is it you? No, it's not you. So here we go with part two. What's next in this is you identified and self-reflected it's not you. So I guess I would say it like this: are they the sour people that you view as sour? Are they looking at things in a negative lens, in a negative paradigm, even after you're trying to stay positive and kind of ignore the negative outlook that they have? That's one of the first things, and maybe clearly the more obvious things that you can do is just, what are they looking at? What's their paradigm? What's the lens that they are viewing everything through? Even though you're trying to, just divert conversations or whatever. But so one of the things that I try to do, and I'm not saying I'm good at any of these things, I'm just saying that I am trying, this is what I try to do. This is the effort that I put into it. And do they completely insist on coming back to past like conversations, or whether it's in the same day or a different day, even after you're trying to move on? Excuse me, my gosh, my voice is all messed up this morning. Even had a cup of coffee already, so I don't know, I should be on point. But even though that conversation, you've attempted to move on from that conversation, you feel like it's not something that you just want to go down, and they continue to insist on just coming back to that, you gently redirect the conversations. And that is one of the biggest identifiers of somebody who's just sour about whatever it may be, or just in general, is they try to keep coming back to something that you should be moving on from. So what do you do? What you should do is for most people who insist on continuing to be sour, in whatever way you deal with them, I think that it's really important to try and empathize with them, but with a huge but. Can I say that? Huge but? What's Sir Mix-a-Lot song? Yeah, that's the first thing that just popped in my head. Sorry. But you have to limit, in a very big way, you have to limit your empathy. I mean, really limit your empathy. Otherwise, you're going to basically get sucked down into a black hole of that sourness. And you might not have a possibility of parole if you go down too far. It just might drag you in so much. So try to empathize, but really have a boundary there with that empathy. Otherwise, it's really easy to go down that path and just get pulled into a black hole. And then politely as possible anyway, set boundaries, and sometimes even written boundaries with people. Tell them when you're able to listen, set a time. Maybe it's the same day, the next day, in a week, gives them some time to think about whatever it was. But set that time when you're able to listen, set that boundary, set how you're able to listen to them. Maybe it's a FaceTime call. Maybe it's just a phone call. Maybe it's in text, or maybe it is in person, but set that boundary of how you're going to listen to that what they want to talk about, and able to just set that boundary with them. And then also the type of solution-driven conversation that you're going to have, set that boundary and say, here's what the conversation needs to look like. We need to stay on the positive, solution-driven side of these conversations. I'll empathize with you on it, but we need to look and focus on how do we get better? How do we fix it? How do we continue to take steps forward? Of course, we're going to always take some back, but we should always constantly be taking at least one step forward in different situations. So I think that's extremely important to do that as politely as possible. Some people are just going to take things the way they take them, no matter what you say or do, and that's pretty clear sign of a sour person. So when you're listening, so what I try to do is when I'm listening, and I'm not saying I'm good at any of these things, do it actively. Actively listen. Don't listen with the how to reply or whatever, but listen without judgment. That's active listening. Just say to yourself, you're just going to absorb it in. You're not going to judge them. Listen with a kind of mindset of understanding. Like try to say, try to tell yourself that I'm going to listen to this in just a way of understanding their situation, understanding where they're at, understanding where they're trying to go. And then I want to say gently, listen with the intent or the idea to gently redirect the conversation when you feel like it's kind of going the wrong direction. When you feel like it's going more in towards a focus on the problem, not focus on a solution conversation. Gently is key, and it's not generally possible. But if we keep that in our mind, I think it's extremely helpful to us to do that and keep that in kind of a more positive way. And then here's the one that most people, including myself, I'm really bad at this, and I hope I'm getting better, but it's to set a very hard line boundary. And when I do this, it really, really makes people angry. And that is a clear sign that you just don't want to have conversations with them. It's just somebody that you have to distance yourself with. If you set these boundaries and they're not willing to sit down with even a middle person and to evaluate the two of you in the conversation, if they're that close of a friendship or relationship, if they're not willing to sit down with that third party, even could be a camera, and then you can go back and look and view and listen together and say, okay, yeah, I see where I really screwed this up. I had to do some huge soul searching on this and diving into this with I've talked about the therapists I've talked to, or the counselors or whatever. And I mean, I really was diligent in putting the work into to learning some of these things and the psychology of it. Read a lot of books on it and stuff too, to really learn myself. But set that hard line boundary so that you're healthy, right? Like, we've all heard, you can't fill from an empty bucket, or however that exact saying goes. I'm probably screwing it up, but you get the idea. Like, you have to set these boundaries, because if you don't and can't have positive interactions with people, it's going to drain you. And if your bucket is already empty, it's going to screw up your mental health. It's going to screw up your physical health and all those things. So you have to understand that when you go into certain conversations with people, please make sure that one of the biggest and hardline boundaries that you set is to keep your health intact. Otherwise, it's not going to do anybody any good, and you will go down that black hole without the possibility of parole if you don't do those things. So don't feel guilty about that. That is, if they can't understand and empathize with that boundary with you, that you say, this is where I have to stay healthy, then you probably don't want to be involved in those conversations anyway. And that's a tough one. It's a really tough one. It's a battle that is constant, and it should be, and that's okay. It should be a battle within yourself, because that means you care, right? That means that you care about those conversations with people, and that you want to help them do and be and get better. So, hey, that's what today is. Morning Hair with Matt. If you're new here, thanks for hanging out and staying. If you so let me put it like this. There's going to be some of these that are going to piss you off, because when I do the research and a lot of these things that I've already had written down, when you bring topics to me, I'm like, ooh, boy, that one hit hard. I remember that. Not everything is going to be a walk in the park. Not everything is going to be for you, but there's 5 of them a week, and at least hopefully for most weeks anyway. And that something will probably be of value to you. So, if today's wasn't, always check back and see what else we have going on. So again, I thank you. Keep the messages coming. I had some fantastic messages again yesterday, and I appreciate each and every one of them. I know I haven't been able to reply back to comments and stuff yet. I intend to get to them. So we will see you tomorrow, and tomorrow's Friday already. So I hope that you have a great Friday, Junior.